Welcome to the Fear and Greed Afternoon Report for Tuesday, the 23rd of May, 2023. I'm Sean Aylmer. Every afternoon, we've got the 5 stories that happened today that you need to know about. Story number 1. The S&P ASX 200 closed the day down just 3 points to finish at 7,260 points. The market was stronger and then fell back in the final couple of hours of trading. Among the sectors, the worst performers were the consumer sectors, that's both discretionary and staples. The best were financials and real estate investment trusts. Among the large caps, Newcrest was down 1.7%, Wesfarmers was off 1.3%, BHP, Woolies, Fortescue, Transurban and Coles, they all ended lower. The banks were stronger, with Commonwealth Bank and Westpac both up almost 1%, while Macquarie Group jumped 2.3%. Generally, it's been pretty quiet on the market in recent sessions in terms of trading at least. In fact, yesterday, only $4.65 billion worth of Australian equities changed hands, which is estimated to be one of the 5 slowest days for volume this year. Now, that's supposed to happen in early January when everyone's on holidays, not the middle of May. Story number 2, shipments of Australian coal have hit their highest level since Beijing banned imports in 2020, potentially adding pressure to domestic energy prices. The ban ended at the start of this year, and China's appetite for the high-quality coal supplied by Australia is gaining momentum amid concerns that rising domestic Chinese production includes too much lower-grade fuel. Australian cargoes in April of mostly thermal coal for power plants surged 75% from the prior month to 3.9 million tonnes, according to the Chinese Customs Office. That puts Australia's share of imports at 10%, almost double the level seen in March. Story number 3, over the weekend, the Prime Minister Anthony Albanese and US President Joe Biden agreed to push Congress to change the US Defence Production Act. That comment has triggered plenty of excitement, particularly in the critical minerals and defence sectors. Essentially, the US government could soon be investing directly in Australian-based miners and defence technology contractors if the changes are made, as expected, by the end of the year. That allow Australia to be listed as a US domestic source, potentially giving Aussie companies access to about $1.5 billion in incentives normally set aside for American and Canadian producers. Only Australian companies with mines operating in the US or Canada are currently open to such US government incentives, but under the proposal, Mr Biden wants to include Australian-based production and manufacturing. Resources Minister Madeleine King's very excited about it. She wants to spearhead a push to mobilise American capital for Australian projects. Story number 5, Sydney Airport Chief Jeff Colbert has resigned and will leave at the end of this year. Now, Colbert has run Australia's biggest airport for 6 years, overseeing it during the COVID-19 pandemic when passenger numbers tumbled, and through the $23.6 billion sale to a consortium led by the US Global Infrastructure Partners and IFM investors. It was delisted from the ASX in March last year. Now, that takeover was pretty well timed, given it was the worst of the pandemic, and Sydney Airport's shares were trading well below their pre-pandemic value. Meanwhile, Qantas today has forecast it's heading for a record $2.5 billion pre-tax profit. And finally, story number 5, global markets are very focused on what's happening with the US debt ceiling negotiations. This morning, President Joe Biden and House Speaker Kevin McCarthy said there's no deal on the debt limit after another round of talks, though they called their discussions productive and promised to keep negotiating to avert a catastrophic US default. Ahead of those discussions, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen warned it's highly likely, her words, that her department, Treasury, will run out of sufficient cash in early June, and that default could come as soon as June 1. That's it for the afternoon report for Tuesday, the 23rd of May, 2023. Michael Thompson and I will be back tomorrow morning with a Wednesday edition of Fear and Greed. I'm Sean Aylmer. Enjoy your evening.